Welcome to Nala Madras, the podcast where we explore the sacred threads connecting spirituality, daily living, and music. Inspired by the rich tapestry of insights on nalamadras.com, this space is a sanctuary for seekers, artists, and anyone drawn to the deeper rhythms of life. Join me as we dive into the world of bhajans, kirtans, shamanic drumming, and other soul-stirring traditions. We'll uncover how music becomes a bridge to the divine and explore timeless practices that nurture inner harmony. Let's journey together into the heart of spirituality, one note at a time.
Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at this idea that our lives might operate on an algorithm of sorts.
Oh yeah, like computers.
Not exactly like lines of code, but like maybe some hidden pattern or like some set of principles, kind of shaping our experiences.
Interesting. So, what are we diving into today?
Well, we're going to be talking about this document called sharanagati.pdf.
Okay.
And it's got me thinking about all these social media algorithms.
Oh yeah.
Like, have you ever had that, like, creepy feeling that those things know you better than you know yourself?
Oh yeah, for sure. I feel like I can't stop scrolling sometimes. But it really makes you think about humans and how we tend to focus on all the negative stuff. Like, that saying, trouble begets trouble.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I see where you're going with this. So are you saying that our minds are, like, programmable algorithms?
Yeah, kind of.
And that by thinking about all the bad stuff, we're, like, attracting more of it?
Yeah, exactly. It's like we're creating these filter bubbles in our minds, like how social media curates our feeds.
So it's like we're choosing what we see in the world based on, like, what we're already thinking about.
Exactly. Like this one anecdote in the source material where this person is trying to decide on a new car.
Okay.
And they're going back and forth between black or this steel gray color.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden they start noticing black cars everywhere.
Oh, like when you buy a new car and then you see the same one everywhere.
Exactly. And it's not that there are suddenly more black cars.
Yeah.
It's that the person's brain is like hyper aware of them after thinking about the color so much.
Oh, okay. So what is that? Like some kind of psychological phenomenon or something?
Yeah, it's called the Bitter-Meinhof phenomenon or the frequency illusion.
Okay, so it's like all in our heads. But how does that work? Like, is there some part of our brain that's like responsible for this?
Exactly. It's our reticular activating system, or RAS.
Okay.
It basically helps us prioritize all the information that our senses pick up.
So like a filter.
Yeah, like a filter. And in the car example, well, the RAS was already primed for black cars because the person was already thinking about the color black.
Wow, that's so crazy. So we're kind of unintentionally choosing what we see in the world.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Like programming ourselves without even realizing it.
Yeah. So could we retrain our brains then to like focus on better things?
Absolutely. And that's where this ancient text called the Bhagavad Gita comes in. There's this quote, "One must elevate, not degrade, oneself by one's own mind. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and its enemy as well."
Whoa. Okay, so that's a lot to unpack. So like our minds can be our friends or our enemies.
Yeah, depending on how we use them.
Okay, but how does that relate to this whole algorithm idea?
Well, the Gita is saying that we have some control over our minds.
Okay.
We can choose to dwell on the bad, which is like writing negative code into our algorithm, or we can choose to focus on positive thoughts, which is like rewriting the code for a more positive outlook.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. But how does this all fit in with free will? Like, are we really just puppets of our own minds?
It's not really saying that we are completely controlled by our minds.
Okay.
It's more like we have this responsibility to be aware of our thoughts and, actively choose what we focus on.
So it's like being more conscious of the program we're running and like making conscious choices to change it.
Exactly. We're active participants in shaping our experiences.
That makes a lot of sense. But how does this all tie in with this concept of like surrender?
Surrender.
Yeah, the document mentions this crazy story about struggling to find parking and how parking spots like magically appeared once the author just let go.
Yeah, it's like when we hold on too tightly to things, we might be blocking ourselves from seeing the solutions that are already there.
Wait, are you saying that the parking spots were always there but they couldn't see them because they were so focused on the problem?
It's a possibility. The Bhagavad Gita has this verse on surrender. "Abandon all varieties of duty and simply surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. do not fear.
So it's like letting go and trusting in something bigger than ourselves.
Exactly. Trusting in a bigger plan.
I like that. But what does that have to do with sinful reactions? That sounds pretty heavy for just trying to find a parking spot.
Well, in the Gita, sin has a broader meaning. It refers to anything that causes us to suffer. Surrender in this context is really about trusting in a wisdom that is beyond our understanding.
So it's like letting go of our expectations and allowing things to unfold naturally.
Precisely. Recognizing that there's a wisdom that's far greater than our own.
That's pretty mind-blowing. It's like saying we don't have to have all the answers. There's something bigger guiding us.
And that's where this concept of synchronicity comes into play. Have you ever heard of Carl Jung?
Oh, yeah.
He believed that things can line up in meaningful ways, even if they seem totally unrelated.
Oh, I see. Like when you think of someone and then they call you right at that moment.
Exactly. It's like there's this deeper connection in the universe.
So you're saying that those coincidences might actually be meaningful.
Maybe they're not coincidences at all. What if those parking spots were always there? But the person's resistance prevented them from seeing them.
Interesting. It's making me think that maybe the universe has a sense of humor. Like it throws us these curveballs just to see how we'll react.
The source material actually mentions that. Maybe life's algorithm is designed for meaning, not just ease.
That's a really cool way to look at it. So if our lives are like running on this meaningful algorithm, how can we work with it better?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? It's like we're all given this really detailed map, but we're so busy trying to like control the route that we miss out on all the cool stuff along the way.
I like that. So how do we get out of that control freak mindset and just like trust more? The document mentions something about our minds being like programmable.
Right. Instead of thinking about our minds as like fixed,
Yeah.
what if we thought about them as adaptable? Like something we can rewire.
Okay, now we're getting into like matrix territory. Is there any like science behind this whole rewiring thing?
Oh yeah, totally. It's called neuroplasticity.
Okay.
And it basically says that our brains can change based on our experiences.
Oh, so we're not just stuck with what we were born with. Like we can actually change our brains.
Yeah, exactly. Like upgrading our mental software. And just like any software, well, the quality of the input determines the quality of the output. If we keep feeding our minds negativity,
Yeah.
then that's what we're going to get more of.
So if we focus on the good stuff, like gratitude and stuff, we can create a better mindset.
Exactly. And, you know, things like mindfulness and meditation can really help with it. They help us be more aware of our thoughts.
So it's not about like ignoring the bad thoughts. It's more about just like noticing them without getting like carried away by them.
Yeah. It's about being kinder to ourselves. And it kind of brings us back to the Bhagavad Gita.
Right. Our minds can be our friends or our enemies.
Yeah. So it's like we have all this power inside us, but we have to learn to use it the right way.
Makes sense. So how does all this connect to surrender?
Well, if we think of surrender as letting go of control,
Okay.
it makes sense that a more flexible mind would be more open to it, right?
Right.
When we're stuck in that fear-based, control-freak mindset,
Yeah.
we have a harder time trusting the process.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like trying to force something that doesn't fit, but when we let go,
Yeah,
we allow ourselves to like go with the flow.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's when the magic happens.
So true. When we let go of the need to control everything, we open ourselves up to new possibilities.
Right. It's like we're saying, okay, universe, I trust you. Show me what you got.
That's awesome. You know, it reminds me of how the universe might have a sense of humor.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like it throws us curveballs and we're so busy freaking out that we totally miss the cosmic joke.
Totally.
Yeah.
We're taking ourselves way too seriously.
Yeah.
And the universe is like, lighten up.
Yeah. There's that quote, life is a comedy for those who think and a tragedy for those who feel.
Oh, yeah. I like that one.
And I think that's a really good way to think about what we're talking about here.
Yeah, it's all about perspective. And that's where the programmable algorithm idea comes in. Like, we can choose to see challenges as opportunities and, you know, setbacks as like a redirection.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all part of a bigger journey.
Okay. So it's not about avoiding the tough stuff. It's more about how we choose to deal with it.
Yes. Like embracing the messiness of life with a sense of humor.
I love that.
Yeah.
So what about intuition? You mentioned Carl Jung before.
Yeah.
And synchronicity. How does that fit into all of this?
Jung thought that our intuition was a really powerful source of wisdom. And a lot of times it speaks to us through those synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences. When we're in the flow, we tend to experience more of those synchronicities. It's like the universe is giving us a little wink.
I like that. But how do we know if something is like a real synchronicity or just a coincidence?
That's where intuition comes in. It's about trusting that inner voice, those gut feelings.
So we have to learn to trust ourselves more.
Yeah, like learning to listen to the voice of our soul, not just our ego.
Makes sense. So the more we practice surrender, the
Yeah.
more we'll be able to hear those whispers from the universe.
Exactly.
This is all great, but I think a lot of people struggle with letting go of control. Like we're taught to hustle and make things happen.
True. But what if I told you that sometimes the best thing you can do is surrender?
Really?
Yeah. Like letting go of the reins and trusting the universe.
A part of me is like, no way. Like it feels like I'm giving up.
I get it. But it's not about giving up on your dreams. It's about letting go of how and when they happen, trusting that the universe has a better plan.
So it's like setting intentions, taking action, and then letting go of the outcome.
Yeah. It's about finding that balance between effort and surrender.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about when things don't go as planned? Like when we face setbacks or disappointments? Does surrender still apply then?
Definitely. In fact, it's even more important then. It's about acknowledging the pain and not resisting it, like letting ourselves feel the full range of emotions.
So it's not about pretending everything's fine. It's more about allowing ourselves to actually feel our feelings.
Exactly. And remembering that even in the darkest times, there's still a light inside us.
Oh, yeah. It's like we have to remember that we're not alone in all of this.
Right. There's something bigger supporting us every step of the way.
That's a good reminder. So before we move on to surrender,
Okay.
what do you think about this idea that the universe might have an algorithm for our lives?
Oh, yeah. That's a trippy thought. Like, what if there's a divine programmer out there just orchestrating everything?
Yeah, like we're all just little programs running on its operating system. But what's the point of it all then?
Well, the source suggests that maybe it's not about the end goal.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's more about the journey, learning and growing and, becoming who we're meant to be.
So it's about enjoying the ride, not just the destination.
Exactly, like
Yeah.
embracing the whole adventure, bumps and all.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together, like the mind and surrender and synchronicity and even this algorithm thing. But how do we actually live this stuff out, like in our daily lives? Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right? Like how do we actually bridge the gap between all these big ideas and just, living our lives?
Well, it starts with looking at things a little differently. Like instead of thinking of surrender as this passive thing, what if it was more of an active choice? Like we're choosing to align with something bigger.
Okay, so it's not about giving up. It's more about surrendering the need to control.
Exactly. Like imagine you're on a rafting trip down a crazy river.
Okay.
You could try to paddle upstream, fighting against the current,
Mm-hmm.
but that sounds exhausting, right? So instead you surrender to the flow of the river, trusting that it will take you where you need to go.
Okay, I like that analogy, but how do you actually trust the flow when everything feels so crazy and unpredictable?
That's where mindfulness and meditation can really help.
Oh, right.
They help us create some space between us and our thoughts,
Oh, okay.
so we can choose how we want to respond to things.
So we can be more aware of what's happening inside us.
Exactly. And we remember that we're not alone. Like there's a whole universe supporting us.
Right. That reminds me of what the source said about Sharanagati.
Yeah, surrender in Hindu philosophy.
Exactly. It's all about surrendering to a higher power.
It's wild, isn't it? Like this ancient wisdom saying the same thing as modern psychology.
It's like a universal truth or something. Totally. So if we're basically surrendering to this meaningful algorithm thing, what does that look like? Like, how do we know if we're doing it right?
Well, pay attention to the synchronicities.
Oh, right. The coincidences.
Yeah, those meaningful coincidences.
Yeah.
Like little winks from the universe.
Okay, but how do we know if it's a real synchronicity or just chance?
That's where you got to trust your gut, your intuition.
Oh, okay. Like that inner voice.
Exactly. The more we let go,
Yeah.
the easier it is to hear that inner voice.
This sounds amazing. But I think a lot of people have a really hard time letting go of control.
I hear that. Our culture is all about hustle and making things happen. But what if I told you that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is actually surrender?
Huh. Really? But isn't that giving up?
Not really. It's more like acknowledging that you don't have to control everything, that there's a bigger force at play.
So it's like setting intentions, taking action, and then just trusting.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's all about finding that sweet spot between doing your part and letting the universe do its thing.
Makes sense. What about when things go wrong?
Yeah.
Like you hit a roadblock or something. Does surrender work then too?
Absolutely. Actually,
Yeah.
It's super important then. It's about being with the pain, not pushing it away.
So not pretending everything's okay, just like letting yourself feel it.
Exactly. And remembering that even when it's really tough, there's a part of you that's always strong and bright.
Oh, that's nice. We have to remember that we're not alone in this.
Exactly.
This has been awesome. So much good stuff to think about.
Yeah, it's been a great deep dive.
It really has. So to wrap things up, let's just say surrender to the flow, trust the process, and enjoy the ride.
And don't forget, the universe has got a killer playlist just for you. So tune in and let the music guide you.